Dennis J. Henson, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you, Aaron. It's a pleasure to be here.
You have, if I understand correctly, over 5 decades of experience in the business and real estate worlds. What has your work in business and real estate been like?
Well, it's like a roller coaster, I guess. Like most any businesses, you're going to run into some problems, and I've had my share of those, and I've had my share of successes. So it's been fun. You know, it's fun to ride a roller coaster, even with the danger and the excitement.
What are some businesses you've owned, and what are some business ventures that you've been involved in?
I own an engineering company in Alabama, Cherokee Engineering, and I owned a printing company. I've owned I started a real estate investing group early this century. And an offshoot of that was we created franchises so that other people could have real estate investing groups. The biggest, I've done so many different businesses that we wouldn't have time to do that in this podcast. You would finally just stop. Those were the major ones. And then real estate investing has been really good to me. And that mostly real estate investing has been the business that I've excelled at. And I've taught real estate investing for 20 years and business success courses. So I've probably been more successful in the training because my students have outperformed me. I've done very well, but my students have really been super. And because of that, I got a pretty good reputation as an instructor, a mentor, and a teacher.
Most of this interview is going to be about your personal development book titled Real Impact, Daily Inspiration. Without spoiling too much about Real Impact, Daily Inspiration, what is that book about?
When I started in Texas investing in real estate, there was not a real estate investing group in Arlington. There was, I live in Arlington, Texas, which is in the middle of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Well, the Metroplex is really big. There were real estate groups in Fort Worth and in Dallas, but it took an hour to get there. And if there was traffic, maybe 2 hours. So I started my own group. And an offshoot of that was I started teaching. And my students did really well. I mean, they were just exceptional. And because they were so good, I got invited to speak at a lot of real estate groups throughout the nation. And podcasts were just getting started. This was back in maybe 2017. Podcasts were going. There was a real estate podcast in Houston, and they called and said, "You want to be on the podcast, the host?" A guest. And I said, "Sure." So then during the podcast, the host said, "Dennis, why are your students so successful? You know, what makes them stand out? There are a lot of teachers, but yours really seem to do well." And I said, "Well, I haven't changed their habits. If they can form success habits, they will become successful." Then he said, "Well, what is the most important success habit?" And I thought for a second, and I said, "Well, form the habit of reading something positive every day that leads you toward your goal," which in that case would be real estate, but it works with anything. So after the podcast was over, I thought, man, that was the right answer. That was a good answer. Wouldn't it be wonderful if there was some kind of a tool to help people form that habit so they could do it really easily? And then it hit me. For 50 years, I've been collecting books on success. Not all books on success, just the very best ones. I kept those in a journal. I met Jim Rohn back in the 70s, and he said, "Write everything in a journal." And I've been collecting poems and quotes. And when I heard a short story, like Sylvester Stallone's short stories, really, really powerful, I would keep that. And I used it in my training. So when I was thinking, wouldn't it be a great tool? I realized, wait a minute, I have all of these wonderful motivational things. I can put them in a book. And regardless of anyone's time, they'll be able to complete their habit for the day. For example, if they have 5 minutes between a meeting, they can read a poem. If they have at the airport and they have 3 hours, they can read one of the accompanying books. Or if they get home and they're exhausted and I forgot to read today, they can take the book, flip to the back, and read a quote or two, and go to sleep thinking about something positive. So the book is a tool. It's not a book to read. It's kind of like the Bible. The Bible is a tool. You wouldn't read the Bible from cover to cover and expect to get much out of it. That's not how it was written. You have to take it a little at a time. Well, this book is like that. It's better read until you get inspiration, and then you contemplate the inspiration. So that's what Real Impact Daily Inspiration is. That's what it's about, and it really works. I know it does because that's how I had my students learn.
The front cover of Real Impact includes an image of what I initially thought was a tea kettle, but it's actually a genie's lamp.
Right.
What is the significance of the genie's lamp on the front cover of the book?
Well, most people have heard the story of Aladdin, about a young man who found an old lamp, and when he was cleaning it, he discovered when he rubbed it, it had magic powers. And a genie would come and the genie would say, Master, what do you want? I'm going to give you 3 wishes, but in order to get the wishes, you have to tell me what you want. And so this book is kind of like that lamp. It's an amulet. But first, in order to use the book, you have to decide, what is it I want? You have to have that ultimate goal, that star that you're searching for, the possible dream. So the most people read the story and they think, well, it has nothing to do with reality. But the truth is, it's a powerful story, because in order to get something big, you first have to decide that you want something big. And that could be anything. It could be a young lady that's in high school that loves pets and decides, wow, I'd love to be a veterinarian. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I'd get to be with animals. I'd make them, make them well, get to meet different animals, and it would just be wonderful. And then she says, well, no, I can't do that. I don't have the money. It's veterinary school is difficult. And she comes up with all these reasons that she can't do it. When if she had pushed her butts out of the way and said, this is what I want, and I am going to do this. I am going to read something positive every day that leads me in that direction. I'm going to read about veterinary medicine. I'm going to go to clinics and meet the doctors. I'm going to talk with people at the schools. I'm going to go out and look for scholarships and try to put the money together, maybe student loans. So once you have a direction, that's what this book, it's a kind of a double whammy. First of all, it forces you to decide, what's the thing that I'm going to try to get? And then by forming the habit of reading something positive every day that moves you in that direction, it reminds you every day of where you're going, which is big. I mean, that's really powerful.
What motivated you to write Real Impact?
After that podcast, when I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a tool? I thought, well, I've got all these things, I can put them together, and in a couple of months, I'll have a book and I can use it with my students. I can and let them, it'll be a tool for them. So I started working on it, and it took me 6 years, and I worked on it every single day for 6 years. I mean, Saturdays and Sundays too. It was like one of those goals. I was going to move forward every day. And eventually, the motivation for doing all that work didn't come from helping my students. It came from all of the people that the book can help. Just imagine if a lot of people decided to read something positive every single day. Do you think that might change the attitude of a lot of people? And not just help them, but their family and the people they're around and their business. So I really believe this is a very positive thing. It's going to help an awful lot of people, and that's what motivated me. And I'm in the winter of my life. I'd like to leave something that's going to continue to help after I'm gone, and I believe this book is it.
In Real Impact, you emphasize the importance of mindset in achieving goals. Could you share a pivotal moment in your life where a change in mindset led to significant personal and or professional growth?
When I was in school, in high school, I hated school. I mean, I literally dreaded getting up, getting on the bus, going. It felt like prison. I mean, school was not something that I wanted to do. I lived for the last bell of the day so that I could go home. And then summer was my favorite part of the year. So I was in the ninth grade, and my teacher brought me in, and my mother was there and said, Dennis is failing ninth grade. If he doesn't start taking his books home and studying, he's going to be held back and he probably won't finish high school. So my mother made me start studying enough so that I didn't fail the ninth grade. I was a terrible student. We were extremely poor, had no money. I had no desire. I thought, when I graduate from high school, it's going to be summer forever because I won't ever have to go back to school. The thought of going to college it just made me sick. I just thought, why would anybody do that? Why would they force themselves to continue to have to do all this terrible stuff? See, I was dyslexic and had ADD, so reading was difficult. I mean, it was like pushing a wagon uphill. So the last thing in the world that would have entered my mind that day when I went to school was going to college. I did not want to go to college. My father would have never let me leave home and go to college. We didn't have the money. I didn't have the grades. It was an impossibility. So one day the intercom blasted out. Well, after lunch, go straight to the auditorium. We're having assembly. And I thought, oh man, that's great. No class this afternoon. Whatever it is going to be better than class. So we went to assembly. And there was a band there. Now I was in the band. I thought, oh, we could do the band. But they weren't. It wasn't a high school band. Those people looked like grown people. That was a college band. And so they played and thought, that's pretty good. It's much better than going to class. Then the director turned around and said, well, I brought a little treat for you today. Our marching drum section is going to put on an exhibition. And I thought, oh, that's wonderful. I'm a drummer in the high school band, and I've been learning to play the rudiments. And I was the best drummer in the school. So those guys went out there and they put on a show. I mean, they played stuff that I never imagined would ever happen. They were doing sticking, twirling their drums. They were doing, movements. And when they finished, the entire student body jumped to their feet and screamed and yelled and clapped. It went on forever. And I just thought, oh my God, I've got to be part of that. So I immediately went to my band director and said, how do I get in that drum section? And he looked at me and smiled and he said, Dennis, in order to be in that drum section, you'd have to go to college. And with your grades, they're never going to let you in college. And I looked at him and I said, if I can change my grades, can I get in that drum section? And he says, well, if you don't, you never will. So Aaron, that day, the world, the earth moved beneath my feet. I had a new goal. I started going to class. I started taking my books home. I brought my F's and D's up to C's and B's and eventually A's. And 3 years later, I was accepted into Jacksonville State University. I became part of the drum section. I became the section leader of that drum section. And before I left the college there, I became the drum major of the Marching Southerners. So that was a life-changing event. But the reason I was able to make that impossible dream happen was a thing that I called the laws of nature for success. And that's a new book that I'm writing, where there are certain things that if you do those things, you can get anything you want. But if you don't do them, your life's going to be difficult. You're going to run into problems. It's going to be, it's not going to be an easy task. So the laws of nature for success is the reason that everything turned around and that I was able to reach my ultimate goal at that time. And I've done it many times since then.
In addition to Real Impact Daily Inspiration, as well as your upcoming book, you've written 3 other nonfiction books. All of those, I should say, are about real estate investing. Without spoiling too much about your books on real estate investing, what are each of them about?
There's a Rudyard Kipling poem. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names were what, where, when, why, and so forth. So that's what the books are about. They're about why to do real estate investing, how to get started, where to find the money. So there's 5 of the books, and I call them the REI Skills series. And the first book is The Royal Flush of Real Estate. And that's the why. And the next one is how to get started. So if you're interested in real estate investing, you can go to DennisJHenson.com and follow there. And the series will be up. They're all finished. One of them is up, but the rest of the series will be up by the end of the year.
What are the easiest and hardest parts of writing nonfiction books for you?
Well, the easiest part's writing the book. I really enjoy it. Moving a step toward my goal every day. I write every day. I write more than 2,500. I probably write 3,000 to 4,000 words every day. Consequently, I've completed 7 books, and I'm working on about 8 more. It's just fun. I love the research, the connections. I know a lot of quotes because of the collecting quotes for 50 years. I like the quotes. I like the poems that go in there. I like it when people read the book and give me a 5-star rating. The writing of the book is easy. That's really very, very simple. I have a knack for doing it, making it fun. People seem to love them. I get lots and lots of 5-star ratings. The hard part is marketing. I don't really enjoy it very much. I'm not very good at it. And I'm constantly working to try, that's why we're having this podcast today, to get the word out about the books. But I hope that answers your question. Writing's easy, marketing's difficult.
Are all of your books independently, traditionally, or hybrid published, or did you use different publishing methods for each of your books?
So Real Impact Daily Inspiration is in every platform. It's audio book, ebook, soft cover, hardcover. I've even got an app coming out. If I find something else, I'll put it in that. So if whatever you like, if you like to listen, the audio, I got a really good person to do the speaking. He was wonderful. It took me I was on a 6-month waiting list, but I had to have him because his voice is just wonderful. You should go on Amazon and click on the example and listen to him. He's really, really good. And what the book says is very interesting. The book is super interesting. It may sound boring, but it's not. It's very interesting because the stories and quotes and poems I put in there were really interesting before I put them in there. So I couldn't miss. And when the book went up, the ratings started coming in, and people, just go to Amazon and read the people's reviews of the book. They just, and that makes my day. I really love I love that. So I hope if you get the book and you read it and you like it, that you'll go to Amazon and leave a review.
One final question to finish this interview. What is the best advice you could offer to those who have difficulties in their lives? I know that's a very broad term?
Well, they should get the 7 Secrets of Success. That's one of my books. You can probably find the 7 Secrets of Success just by searching the internet, because I've written articles over the years. And the first secret of success is get your mind right. If you have your mind right, then you'll be happy. Whatever is happening, you'll be able to deal with it. So getting your mind right has several different aspects. The first is you have a definite purpose. You know exactly what you want. You have a burning desire, not just a desire, but a burning desire to get there, that you believe that no matter what happens, you will be able to reach that goal. And then to answer your question, the last one is you have to have a positive mental attitude. Now, having a positive mental attitude may sound difficult, but if people have the habit of having a bad attitude, breaking that habit is difficult. But if they work at it for a month or 2 months, after a while, your attitude will start to change. It will start to become positive. And the way that you can do that, the best way to do it, it's highlighted in the book, is what I call killing ants. You have to kill ants every day. And the ants are any negative thought sequence. So if you think, boy, my wife really messed that up, she can't drive, you start thinking bad things, then you have to say, wait a minute, oh, wait, no, that is an ant. And we're not going to do that. I want to think of something positive. I want to think about how cute my dog is, or that my daughter's coming to visit, or something. You replace that negative thought with something positive. If you can form that habit, it will not only change your life, it'll change your business, it'll change your relationships, it will change everything, because negative people are a magnet for bad things, and positive people are a magnet for good things. And that's a law of nature. You can find that in the laws of nature for success.
Dennis, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were an insightful guest to interview.
All right. Could I give everyone that's listening in a free ebook?
Sure.
If they'll go to realimpactbook.com, there are all kinds of gifts. There's a monthly positive book. It's really a great book. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, because you attended this podcast, and click on podcast attendee, you can get the Real Impact ebook for free, no strings attached. You put your name, your email in instantly. You can have it in seconds, instant download. You will not be put on a mailing list. There is a link there at the bottom when you click on that says, click here if you want to know about when I have other books. And the only time you'll ever get an email from me then will be when one of my other books is published. Hey, have another book if you want to go check it out. So that's a free gift. And there's a number of other, if you go to that website, it's growing. The number of people that go and come back is growing and growing and growing. It's amazing how many people are coming to the site. It's very thrilling. And there's games on there where you can win an audiobook. And check it out. Come back every month and get your free book and play the game and win something fun. Try to make it attractive. I think you'll be happy you visited.
This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.